Hi, my name is Dominic and this video is part 2 of the white noise sound design video. Part 1 was more like a theoretical video about the theory, what you can do with white noise, and some guys of you demanded that I make a more practical video where I show really what I do. So you have a look behind the scenes, and this is exactly what I want to do right now in this video. And to start things off, I want to show you that I gotta take on my headphones. I want to show you that this is our basic signal that we are working with. I hope you all agree that this sound is not too exciting on its own, but there are so many cool things that we can do with this basic signal, and this is what I want to show you in this video. So what I want to do is I'm gonna duplicate this track ten times because I want to create 10 sounds out of the same white noise signal. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Okay, yeah. 12. One of the original and then 12 of the others. That makes 13 tracks in sum, so this is okay. We're gonna work with that. And the first sound that we want to create is, let's mute all of them. The first sound that we're gonna create is rain. For the rain sound, I want to apply a very strong low cut. So let's bring in an EQ. And did I say low cut? I mean, I think a high cut. Both. Both. Okay. About. Okay, so the first thing that I applied was the low cut with a very low Q value. That means that the filter is not steep, as you see. I bring it down. The same thing, I want to do the same thing with the high cut. Let's bring that in. And this is basically our rain sound. Let's give it a little space, a little more attack here, a little more release. Let's try the dimension expander. This is some kind of effect which comes within Massive, which I probably will use in many of the sounds in this video. Let's see. Yeah, it gives the sound a little more space. I really love this. Very, very simple insert effect that is built in within Massive. And as you hear, when I play back the sound now, it really sounds like rain. The only problem is that the sound is very static. So what I want to do is I want to make the sound a little more dynamic. That is the reason why I am going to draw in an automation for the, let me see. It's gonna be the height and then the frequency of this. This is what I want to automate. Just a little test. Yeah, what you can hear is that as the curve goes up, the rain seems to get more intensive. Intense, I think it's intense. Yeah, it gets more intense. And so you can control or virtually control the amount of water which comes down. So if I, let's say, so the higher the high cut filter, the more water you have, so to speak. So this is the rain sound. I'm gonna close this window, and the next sound that I want to create is a thunder. Again, the same stupid white noise signal as my basic sound. And for this sound, I want to bring down the color section, like so. And I got to have an LFO on this. So the color section is some kind of a control for the frequency spectrum. A dark color, which I now have, means very low frequencies, whereas when I put this thing up, I have very high frequencies. But for a thunder, we want to have mainly low frequencies in our sound, so that's why I turn that thing down. Then, very important, that's too much, a little less. And of course, more of the release, a little more attack, like so. Okay, tube, some distortion effect. Yeah, I think you can also build cool explosions with this method, but in this example, I want to create a thunder. Let's try that. Dimension expander as with the first sound. Here we have it. And here the most important thing really is to delete, so to speak, all of the high frequency content. That's what I gotta do right now. See? And I could even give it a low boost if I want to. Ah, that's cool. Wow. So it's already going into the right direction. It already sounds like a thunder. There's some more, one more important thing that we can do. Again, the same idea with the rain. To make it a little more dynamic, we can automate the filter or the EQ manipulation, so to speak. It's here, band 4, frequency, there you go. And that's too high. Let's bring that thing down. Ah, yes. Low noise rumble. And again, this is like a real thunder, which is not always the same static noise. It has a sound that changes over time, and that's what I create with this automation curve. So that's our thunder. The next thing will be a lightning sound. And therefore, I want to change my MIDI data, which I have in here a little bit. And I don't need a signal which is that long. I think 1 bar is enough. Let's see. And this time, something like this. Wait a minute. Here we are. Too long. So here the basic idea is to manipulate the envelope shape. So we got a very short and snappy sound based on our white noise signal. I want to try something with the feedback, maybe. Okay, just to thicken things up a little bit. And then let's see if we can apply the dimension expander again. A little reverb could help. And finally, there's a very cool plugin that I have right here. It's from Native Instruments, and it's called the Transient Shaper. Usually you use this plugin on drums, but this time I'm gonna use it on my sound effect. To really pronounce the attack phase of this, to get the clicky transient out of it. And there's one more thing that I want to try. I don't know if it works, but I think with a lightning sound, you usually would expect some delays going on. Let's try a delay stereo preset, ambience maybe. That's cool. A minute, next one. Yeah, I think that's something that we could work with. There's one important thing to say about all these sounds. They are pretty raw and pretty basic. So there are more advantage approaches to design sounds like this. But for this video, I just want to give you an idea of what you're capable to do with a simple white noise sound as your starting point. And you will see that some of our sounds in this video will sound more realistic, whereas other will not sound as realistic as the others. Okay, that's been the lightning sound. Then we'll have the wind. And for this, I want to create a longer MIDI file. Let me see. It's always very important to have the shortcuts. For example, if you press the P on your keyboard, then the whole area which is marked will be your looping area. So for the wind, we want to have this area looped. And again, our basic signal is the white noise signal, which we had at the beginning. And this time, the idea is to cut out the high frequencies, but to do it with a very high resonance. So EQ, Studio Q, let's turn the spectrum on and a cut here. And if I now bring up the Q value, this is our resonance. What you now can hear when I bring up this Q value is that you more and more get a whistling sound. This is due to the resonances. Certain frequencies are boosted, but those frequencies are within a very tiny spectrum, and this is what creates this whistling sound, which is typical for wind noises. And what you also see, what I did right now was I played with a frequency, frequency. So the point where the high cut is active, and when I move this point around, our sound starts to become more dynamic, as I did with the rain and the thunder. It's not static, it's moving, and that's what we want to do. And when I bring up the frequency, it seems to be very, very windy. And when I bring it down, it seems to slow down a little bit. So the wind is not as strong. Very, very little wind. And then it's getting stormy, 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 stormy. But you have to do it slowly and carefully. If you do it too fast, then it sounds unnatural. So let's slowly bring it up. Down a little bit, and up a little bit. Jesus Christ, it's windy today, huh? Yeah, that will be our wind sound. Let me just check something. I could also bring in, a dimension expander here. And I could also draw an automation for the movement, which I just created with the mouse. So let's bring in this and draw in an automation curve. Up and down. Just being careful not to overdo it, not too much. We have clipping here. That's something that we want to avoid always. Maybe that was too fast, but that's the basic idea behind creating a wind sound out of white noise. The next thing will be a little more complex. Let's make it plural form, waves. So we're at the beach and we want to create some wave sounds. Let's do that. Okay, for this sound, I want to do something like this. A sound which is always active for 3 bars, then there's a pause, and then the sound appears again because waves come and go. I mean, I could also create this, for example, with a tremolo effect from my plugins, but I want to do it this way. Let's turn this thing on, and let me see. Low pass and something like this. That's too much. So I just used the low pass filter here to turn down the very, very high frequencies. I don't want to have it in my frequency spectrum for this sound. And then I want to have an LFO which modulates this cutoff a little bit, not too fast. And more attack, of course. Let's bring up the release. That's it. to... Okay, the frequency spectrum is okay, but the sound on its own concerning the envelope is not right yet, so we have to work on it a little bit. Yeah, I created the LFO to modulate the frequency here a little bit, not too much. And then I also use another LFO which modulates the first LFO. This is a technique to make a sound even more complex. Very simple approach, like so. Yeah, the release still is too short. Yeah. So I think the key to this sound is really a long release time to have the tail of the waves, the sound tail. I have a cheat here right in front of me just to be sure that I have all points considered. A low cut and a high shelf. Okay, we're gonna bring in an EQ from the insert channel with a so okay. So that's too much. Yeah, okay. And then let me just explain to you why I always use the shelf 2. The difference between 1, 2, and 3 is that shelf 2 tends to sound more natural, so it's a good choice when you want to recreate natural sounds. Yeah, I think that sounds good already. What else can we do? Dimension expander, reverb, as always. Dimension expander. Volume a little bit. Reverb. Sounds okay. Color. Right now I'm just controlling the sound with my MIDI keyboard. So, okay, I think that's it. I think that's the... Yeah, I think that's the basic idea to create a wave sound or the sound of waves on the beach with white noise as your starting point. All right, so that have been the waves. The next sound on my list is the spray. Oops, spray. And let's close this window. And by the way, you see 25 degrees Celsius. It's not true. My my temperature in my room is about 30 degrees Celsius, so it's really hot in here. So please forgive me if I'm a little slow, sorry, sometimes. So this is the spray sound that we want to create. A spray usually has very little low frequency content. It only contains the high frequencies of the noise. So let me see. Dum dum. Dum da dum dum dum. For the envelope, okay. And then a high pass 4 for this. And let's change the MIDI for this. Okay, it's wrong. Okay, it's not on. right, then a little longer, a short one, and something like this maybe. And 3 bars, that would be enough. Okay. Is that right? A high pass. High pass. Well, that's right. Yeah, high pass. Exactly. Okay, high pass filter. Yeah. Yeah, I think. Yeah. So really only the very, very high frequency content of the sound. And I think I could also bring up the resonance a little bit. Yes, and then let's try an envelope on the cutoff to modulate it a little bit. So, all right. And I think that's it. I think it's very close already to a spray sound, but there's one more thing that I love to do, which makes the sound even more realistic. Modulation and tremolo. Oh, wait a minute. Tremolo or vibrato? No, it's vibrato. We're gonna modulate the frequency of the sound. And this is what a vibrato does. And let's say 5 Hertz. Let's bring this up. So the high values are just too much, I think. But when we bring it down a little bit there, then we get into an area where the sound sounds lively, but it's not too much vibrato going on. Yeah, and I think that's it. That would be our spray sound. The next thing that I have on my list is a sweep. So that's the kind of transition effect that you usually have in electronic music. And that usually is generated from white noise, starting with something that has more low frequency content, and then as the sound goes on, it gets more high frequency content, because more high frequency content within a sound means more energy. It feels like the energy is getting more and more and more, and this is some kind of sound effect that you use to create a drop and to create tension within your music tracks. I'd like to have the high pass again, I think. Or a mixture between both high pass and low pass. Let's create a low pass 4. Okay. And serial parallel. Let's have it in parallel. No, serial. And turn that thing off. Okay. That can be a little longer. Yes. Yeah, as you can see, it's always cool to create movements when you move the knobs while the sound is playing, you create the most interesting sounds. And for this one, I want to assign a macro control on the cutoff of the low pass filter, and I want to create a macro control on the high pass filter. Like so. Let's label those correctly. LP cutoff, HP cutoff, and that's a mistake. So I have to bring this one down to mix 2. So just to explain what's going on in here, the white noise signal is routed to filter 1 and then to filter 2. I could also have it on parallel mode, which means the signal goes through both filters at the same time. But this time I wanted to have it in serial mode. So first filter 1, then filter 2, and I have to bring the mix fader down to mix 2. So I want to have the signal, I want to hear the signal which leaves filter 2. What's wrong? Something's wrong. Something's not working. No. Okay. This one is turned down. Why? I don't know why. Yeah. Okay. Now it's the way I want to have it. Yes. Okay. And what we want to create is something like this: a sound which goes where the low pass cutoff goes up, and in the middle of the sound also the high pass cutoff goes up, and the sound will, in the end, the sound will sound something like this. You get what I mean. Wait a minute. So let me see. Sweep, low pass, and another automation track. Sweep, high pass. Here we go. And let's bring that one up. And then say this one starts to go up here. And let's listen to that. Yeah, so that's the basic idea of creating sweeps in electronic music. Let's bring that, make this a little longer, and I also want to check the, maybe I can increase the release time. Yeah, I could even give it a little more. Okay, one more thing that also is cool on sweep effects. In the first version, which I showed you, I had almost no resonance, but I can also play a little bit with the resonance, and this creates whistling sounds, as you already know from the wind sound. Yes. And okay, and what you already heard at the end of the sound is some kind of a zap, and that's the sound with what we're gonna do next. The reason why you heard this is because this is in looping mode, and at the end of bar 8, it jumps back to the beginning, and while it's doing that, it jumps, the faders also jump. Let me just show you how it looks here within Massive when I open the macro controls, and choop, they jump back to the original settings. And this is the same kind of effect that we now want to do with our zap. Just a cleaner method of doing this. All right. That's, I think this is enough. And again, I press P, and the looping section is just where I have my event here. And the zapping sound is really easy, just as easy as you can imagine. Low pass filter, super high resonance, and then very short settings here. Like so. And the same with an envelope, with a filter envelope, which controls the cutoff. Very short attack. And that's almost it. So what you have to do, that the basic idea really is to route your signal to a low pass filter with a high frequency, and then have the whole knob, the whole cutoff knob, being modulated by an envelope. And the last step here is just to get the faders or the knobs into the right position. So I'm gonna play a little bit with a decay here. If I bring it down too much, it sounds like a kick drum, because when you want to create kick drums, you have a very, very similar approach. Let's bring it up. Yeah, so that's basically our zap sound, the sound that you usually associate with somebody pressing a knob on the remote control and I don't know, turning off the TV or zapping from one program to another. That's the zap sound. Okay, sweep, zap. 2 sounds left, 2 sounds remaining. The next one will be the ambience. Let's label it correctly. Ambience. Like so. Then and any kind of ambient sound like the rain or the wind or the waves, it's always nice or always a good idea to have long release times. Yeah, and an attack which is not too short or too snappy. The next step in the sound will be an EQ again, where I only let the low mids come through. So cut off here, cut off there. Spectrum. Like so. Yeah, I think that's a basic idea. And the cool thing about this is you can do it with almost any ambience. You create a simple white noise signal which has more mid frequencies in it, and then you let this signal run through a reverb unit. I use the reverence. Where's that? Here. And reverence is I just don't wait a minute. The word convolution reverb, exactly. It's a convolution reverb, which means the reverb has been recorded, so to speak. It's a emulation of a real room, and this is really cool because this way you can create very realistic sounds. If I choose the tunnel, for example, the mix is already here. Yeah, I think for this, it's a good idea to work with very high mix values. So you have only the reverberation signal and nothing of the original signal. And the basic idea is to say that any room, any kind of place has an ambience, and typically ambiences consist of noise sounds, which are created by fans, ventilation, wind, traffic, whatever. And you can emulate this sound by a white noise signal with filters applied, and then run this signal through a convolution reverb, and you can recreate any kind of room that you can imagine. So for example, this is our tunnel, but I can also say I want to create the sound, the ambient sound of a room, for example. Let's say a large living room. I know there's something like this in here. Large ambience room. It's really, really cool. And if you want to know more about ambience, there are in a film soundtrack, there are exactly 4 elements or 4 layers which make the soundtrack of a movie, and ambience is one of it. And I'll give you a link in the description. I've written a very long article about this, and I really can recommend this. So this is the basic idea behind the ambience, and the last sound on my list is the helicopter. And the basic idea with the helicopter is to apply an LFO, a sine wave LFO, on my I have to apply it on the color knob, I think, and on the low pass as well. Okay. Low pass filter. No resonance at all. Bring this here. And then... yeah. And right now, the movement of the LFO is just too slowly. But if I increase the movement, just listen. The rotation is getting faster and faster. This is too fast, I think, but here we have our helicopter sound, or the basic foundation of our helicopter sound. That's too much, maybe. And some trick that I usually do with all sounds that are loud is to apply a distortion effect on it. So I choose the teletube. And again, the dimension expander, which I always or very often use on my sounds. Now I have to bring the size up. And for this, it's really cool, I think, to bring in the feedback just to make the sound a little thicker. And I think that's already the basic idea behind the helicopter sound. It's just modulating your white noise signal with a sine wave LFO. And yeah, I mean, there are further things that you can do. For example, let's check. Here in Cubase, I could try some other distortion effects. Wow. I like the tape mode a little more. Let's bring down the volume a little bit. I don't want to have it to be clipping. Yeah, but that's the idea behind the helicopter sound. So that's been 10 sounds made from white noise. I hope you find that interesting, because I do. I really love this sound design things, because it's like a magician who creates something out of nothing and no one knows how he did it. And today I showed you how I did it. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Have a nice day and see you soon. Bye bye.